Hey guys, welcome to Boxing Squared for boxing news and views from around the internet. Luis Ortiz and Charles Martin are set to square off on New Year's Day 2022, according to ESPN. So this was first reported by Mike Coppinger. And I've been saying in recent months, in terms of these two fighters, Luis Ortiz, Charles Martin, they've kind of been left without a chair, because what we've been seeing in the pandemic period is heavyweight fighters who are of some note, some repute, and as such drag down, certain level paydays. They've been just sitting, waiting and watching. And these two guys in particular, so both have not fought in 2021. Charles Martin has been out for more than 18 months now. Luis Ortiz exactly a year at the time of this video. So these guys left without a chair. It made sense that they should face each other. And so they will. And I don't mind this fight. I've seen a little bit of hate for it, people sort of saying it won't be a good fight, etc. But I think it does shape as a good crossroads fight. Luis Ortiz is allegedly 42 years old. Who knows? That is Cuban years. And then Charles Martin, he's 36 years old, out of the ring for more than 18 months now, coming off possibly a career-best win over Gerald Washington. That secured him a really high rating in the IBF, as it was an IBF eliminator. And Ortiz and Martin ranked in other sanctioning bodies too. So it is a case that, even though the rankings aside, it's not a bad fight, and it shapes as, for Ortiz, who's an older fighter now, been basically out of the ring for 2 years. Let's face it, he got starched by Deontay Wilder at the end of 2019, and he's had half a round or less, I should say, 45 seconds of action a year ago against Alexander Flores, who thought he'd, go in there and throw himself onto the canvas. So we don't know where Luis Ortiz is really at, because in that rematch against Deontay Wilder, he looked pretty good, but Wilder was pacing himself, waiting for the right shot. Ultimately, he found it. Luis Ortiz was sweeping all the rounds up until that point, but we haven't really cited him since in any sort of meaningful rounds. So it could be a case that, Luis Ortiz could turn old overnight, although, he has, obviously, with his Cuban years, aged pretty well, and he has still been performing in the ring. For Charles Martin, in terms of the style matchup, it's not great for Martin, because obviously Luis Ortiz has good footwork. He moves well, uses the ring as a good ring craft, good ring general. Charles Martin, a good puncher, but often, looks like he's sort of moving in molasses, slow and plodding on his feet. But he does crack, and as Gerald Washington found out, basically sent him into the shadow realm. So I could sort of see this playing out a number of ways, but I like the fight, and the fact that both these guys, they kind of need each other to have a fight, for one, but two, their sort of aspirations in the heavyweight division hinge on a good performance. And perhaps Luis Ortiz, if he loses this and loses badly, we may see the end of him. After all, he's allegedly 42 years old. And for Charles Martin, he's certainly coming towards the tail end of his career. And I know some people like to say, heavyweights, they can go on till they're 40 years old and have good careers, good wins, etc. But apart from a couple of guys, a la Vladimir Klitschko, also maybe Alexander Povetkin, how many guys in recent times after the age of 35 have had really notable wins? Not many. So, it is a case that, whoever wins this fight will be in prime position for a good fight. And potentially for the IBF, it may end up shaping as some sort of eliminator. We'll have to sort of see what happens here. Charles Martin, obviously, is in a prime position near the top of those rankings. But the style matchup, two southpaws, it's going to be interesting, because you don't see too much of that in terms of two southpaws in action, especially at heavyweight. So it could end up being a bit of a sort of tactical battle. In terms of the action, I expect Luis Ortiz will be trying to use his footwork and trying to use his array of boxing skills to try to outpoint Charles Martin and land that straight left. And I think Charles Martin himself, he'll be looking to just land bombs on Luis Ortiz if he can. But with Ortiz, we have seen him in some fights gas, but so too Charles Martin, he is prone to slowing down too. But with so little recent form to judge these guys on, there's a few unanswered questions, because literally Luis Ortiz could get old overnight and he could look sloppy and he could look beatable and get beaten. We saw that, an example, another division though, but Manny Pacquiao, he was 40 when he fought Keith Thurman, and then he fought just recently, and he just looked a shadow of himself, looked completely different. That was a 2-year layoff, and effectively Luis Ortiz is going into this, and I'm sure we're going to hear when this fight is announced in terms of the press release and other bits and pieces, and this is generally what happens from his trainer, that Herman Caicedo will say stuff that Luis Ortiz has never been better, training best, all these sorts of things, basically saying that he's ever young and just getting better like a fine wine, etc. But at some point these guys fall off a cliff. The power is the last to go, sure, give you that, but certainly if his skills are diminishing, a la the Manny Pacquiao fight, sort of that sort of thing, 2-year difference, and you saw how much he dropped off. He's going to be a much more beatable fighter for Charles Martin. If Martin is able to, if the reflexes are just gone just a hair, he's going to certainly be in this fight. So I would sort of lean towards Luis Ortiz to outbox Charles Martin, but if he gets clipped, we've seen he can be stopped. People like to say Luis Ortiz has got a great chin, but we have seen him stopped a couple of times. And that is, although by Deontay Wilder, so, we have to acknowledge Wilder's got some crazy power. But Charles Martin, we have seen him knock out some guys, and that was a pretty spectacular knockout against Gerald Washington. So I think Martin does have the power to hurt him, but it's going to actually kick off 2022 in a good way for the heavyweight division, because let's face it, 2021 has been absolutely dross, dreadful, dire. Just think of any more sort of words that basically sum up that it's been a crap year for the heavyweight division. How many decent, good level fights have we really had? We've had a few on pay-per-views, but that's outside of that, there's not many. So I like this, and for both these guys, with these layoffs, they're going to get in some activity, get a payday, dip their toe back in the water, and their careers for both of them, to some extent, the next step heavily hinges on this. We could see Luis Ortiz retire off the back of it if he loses, but also Charles Martin, if he loses, it's a long way back to try sort of claw back into a good position, a couple of years of rebuilding. And at 36, does he have the motivation to continue if he was to lose? Because I could still see Luis Ortiz landing something and starching Charles Martin, or just outpointing him but hurting him along the way. So I would predict either, I don't think Martin's going to outbox him, but I certainly think that Martin has the power to hurt and stop Ortiz, and vice versa for Ortiz. So I don't know if this is a 50-50. I would sort of slightly lean towards Ortiz based on the boxing skills. I think he's just a bit more well-rounded than Charles Martin, and should be able to, if he's got anything left, he should beat him. At least, well, who knows? Like I say, a few variables, but I don't mind it. How about you? Drop a comment loud and often. Hit like, hit subscribe. Follow me on Twitter, boxing_squared. I'm out.